Hello and welcome to another weekly update, and we are post Ignite. So this is the weekend immediately following Microsoft Ignite, large IT Pro, mostly IT Pro conference that happens every year. And as expected, a number of fairly significant announcements that have come out of Ignite this year. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to highlight the ones that I picked up on the most. So the first one is not specifically aimed at developers, but might be of interest to developers or partners, and that's around Skype for Business Online. And starting very soon, starting at the beginning of October, if you are using Office 365 and you are a new customer, so you are coming to Office 365 new and you've never used Skype for Business before, then you won't be able to use Skype for Business Online if you have less than 500 seats. There will be no option in Office 365 for you to light up Skype for Business Online if you have less than 500 seats. Now, a couple of caveats to that. The first is if you're already using Skype for Business Online anywhere in your tenant, then this won't affect you, so that's fine. And you've still obviously got a couple of days to sign up. As I'm recording this, you've got basically the weekend to get there and before that 1st of October deadline. And really this whole announcement is very much in line with the general feel of trend at the moment, that Teams is the primary communication client, and especially for those smaller customers that live online, especially for those sub 500 seats, Teams is the right user experience and is the right way to go for your UC. Now, obviously, if you're already using Skype for Business Online, this doesn't change anything. If you were deciding whether to go Skype for Business Online or Teams, this probably makes that decision pretty clear for you. And if you're using on-premise Skype for Business, again, nothing changes. As a developer, this doesn't make a massive difference. The development landscape for Skype for Business Online was never particularly great, if I'm honest. You had the client-side stuff and you had UCWA, but you didn't have any of those kind of back-end server-type things like ECMA, MSPL and stuff. We continue to have those in Skype for Business on-prem, and interestingly, they are coming to Teams. So more on that. Let's talk about it now. So at Ignite, Microsoft announced a public preview of a new set of APIs, the Call and Online Meetings API. This will let you do UCMA type things with Microsoft Teams. Now, the current list of what's supported right now is being able to do two-party calls between a bot and a user, multi-party calling, Meet Now scenarios, calling into private meetings, calling into Microsoft Teams meetings, and then in those meetings being able to control, being able to mute participants, being able to bring other people into the meeting. And this lights up a number of interesting scenarios that previously you'd only be able to do with ECMA. So things like IVRs, where you have users or calling in to a Teams bot, receiving audio, receiving video, DTMF tones, all those types of things are things that you're now able to do with Microsoft Teams, and that's huge. For me, that kind of starts to close that gap for developers between Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams, because for a while there's been that requirement for enterprise level applications that really have struggled to be met on Teams. Despite all the kind of great application and development work that's gone into making Teams a really good development platform, there's always been that kind of back-end service requirement. And now we're starting to see that come through in this new API, so that's very exciting. So I've got a number of blog posts I'm working on talking about the Calling and Online Meeting API. I've been using it for a little while, so I am familiar with it. I have a number of samples ready to go. It's just a case of finding the time to kind of pull those together, make sure they still work, and write up those flows. So look out for that. Again, like all the things I do with these samples, all the code will go straight onto GitHub, so hopefully it'll be a useful resource. There's a really good blog post actually called on the Microsoft Tech Community site called What's New in Teams Ignite Edition, and that goes through all the announcements for Teams. So if you haven't seen that yet, you absolutely should read it. It's a very good summary of all the things. It covers this a little bit of the calling an online meeting API. It just kind of skims the detail. It talks about some of the other things that are coming in that I'm not going to talk about today. There's a bunch of stuff. What's interesting is we're seeing Teams really mature. So a really interesting statistic that came out of Ignite was that Teams, Microsoft Teams, has been the fastest growing business application in Microsoft's history ever. So that's huge if you look at the growth rate. And what we're seeing now is, in some ways, the core product has been delivered. The capabilities are there. We have that parity with Skype for Business Online now, which has led to this kind of announcement around Skype for Business Online not onboarding new customers. And now we're starting to see a maturity in the application, but also we're starting to see it branch out into specific verticals. So we're starting to see features light up that really round out different use cases in verticals. So I'm thinking there's been announcements made at Ignite around education and specific functionality for education. Same thing for healthcare. We've seen specific functionality added for healthcare scenarios. And so that's really interesting. It's Microsoft recognizing in a way that maybe they haven't always in the past with their solutions, recognizing that not everybody works the same way, and that different verticals work slightly differently and have slightly different requirements. So that is very good to see. Some new capabilities as well, talking about sort of verticals, I guess a horizontal for first line workers, so frontline workers, and some new capabilities there in terms of managing your hours, managing your shifts, shift patterns, and all these sort of things. If that sounds a lot like StaffHub, a previous Microsoft project or product, it's so much like StaffHub, in fact, that StaffHub is being shut down in favour of this functionality in Teams. So again, I've got a blog post out about that, so you can go and look at that. I'll put a link in the show notes. And then the only other thing I really wanted to call out, which I think probably just kind of maybe got missed in all the announcements, was the stuff that came out of the keynote. So I've heard some people be quite critical about the keynote, about Satya's keynote, because Satya's very good at taking all the information, and he could have, that keynote could have been a slew of announcements, and it absolutely wasn't. Satya left that for the individual groups to make their own announcements, and I think that was the right thing to do. What Satya did was pull everything together and kind of summarize it and set the overall strategy and direction for the conference. And some of that is softer than technology. And this program that kind of got announced as a one-liner, really, it's funny, these kind of throwaway comments, and then you dig behind it, and it turns out to be this massive, great thing. And it's around AI, and it's around AI for good, I guess you could call it. And Microsoft have just launched a campaign called the Humanitarian Action Program. So it's been launched in conjunction with the United Nations General Assembly. It's $40 million of investment over 5 years. And the aim is for Microsoft to bring what they know about artificial intelligence and focus on 4 priorities to kind of help the world recover from disasters, address the needs of children, protect refugees, and promote respect for human rights. And working with the UN to deliver some real actionable outcomes. And for me, that's the dividing line between, yes, the technology stacks, you've got different companies competing to be the leader in AI and be the leader in machine learning in this space, and everybody touts different statistics to tell you how much better they are than everyone else. But for me, it's programs like this where Microsoft are really showing how they can use their technology for good, and use their power and money, I guess, as an influence, as a big company to drive real positive change. For me, that's a really important part of a company. It's what gives you a good feeling about partnering with a company, and using them using them and using their services. So I think that was a really nice thing to have in the keynote, because I think it set a nice tone for the rest of the conference. And I don't know whether that was entirely picked up by everyone that listened to the keynote, but for me, that was my takeaway. So I thought it was great. All right, that's everything for me this week. Follow me on Twitter. All these are being posted to YouTube as well. Trying to post to LinkedIn also. Have a good week, and I will talk to you again next time.